One of the major criticisms of intelligence tests is that many of these tests can be considered culturally biased. What we mean by that is this. An intelligence test is supposed to measure your intelligence. It is not supposed to measure your knowledge of the culture that you're in. It is supposed to measure your intelligence. Those are two different things. Okay? If you are not from a particular culture, you should still be able to show your intelligence even if you do not know the culture very well. I am, if I were to take a test about Louisiana information, I've learned a lot since I've been living in Louisiana, but I'm originally from New York. So maybe I would not do as well on a Louisiana intelligence test as someone who was from Louisiana. But here's an example of a culturally unfair question. Caesar is to salad as blank is to brandy. The correct answer is Napoleon, because there is a Caesar salad, which is a type of salad, and there's Napoleon brandy, which is a type of brandy. Well, if you've never drank brandy, then you're not necessarily going to know what Napoleon brandy is. Okay? You might not even be familiar with eating Caesar salads. That might not be part of your diet. So that question is totally messed up. It is completely culturally biased. And if you are not familiar with Caesar salads or Napoleon brandies, then you are not going to be able to answer that question. There are some testers try to create tests that are culture fair. In other words, they're trying to make tests that reduce cultural bias, minimize those skills that vary from one culture to another. That's the idea of making a culture fair test. So using a culture fair nonverbal ability test, you'll find much fewer differences between the races when you're relying on more culturally fair tests. There is another phenomenon that exists when it comes to intelligence, as well as other types of things. It has to do with the concept of stereotype threat. If there's a negative stereotype about a particular group you belong to, you might actually perform poorly to be consistent with that stereotype, and you're not doing it intentionally, but it might just happen. So if you are a member of a group that is perceived to be, that there's a stereotype that you have low intelligence, and you are told that you're going to take a test measuring your intelligence, you might do worse. And what's been shown is that if somebody else who is in that same group, but is not told anything, is given the same test, but not told that it's a test of intelligence, they do better. So if you think that you are taking a test that is irrelevant to a particular stereotype for your particular group, then you're going to do better than if you are told essentially that this test measures something that you are stereotyped to do poorly in. So what is going on there? Maybe if you are believing in this stereotype threat, maybe the stereotype threat is causing you more anxiety. Maybe you are not concentrating enough on your answers. Maybe in some kind of subconscious way you are trying to fulfill the stereotype in some way. But it is an interesting phenomenon for sure. And that could also be an explanation for poor performance among African Americans, in that it could be the stereotype threat that is leading them to perhaps perform more poorly on tests of intelligence. So let's talk about variations in intelligence. We looked at that normal distribution of IQ scores. There are some people who score really, really high, and these people are often called gifted. Terman, who developed that Stanford-Binet test, was interested in studying these individuals who were very well adjusted, very successful, very intelligent, gifted. And the idea is that, there may be some innate ability in that. There is some genetics involved in this. But again, you can also be growing up in a culturally nourishing environment which would, improve you. But again, and by the way, these gifted people are not like freaks or anything like that. They're not just good in terms of intelligence tests, but they're also socially and whatnot. They're well-adjusted people. They are not freaks. People who have an intellectual disability, usually IQ below 70, it could be something genetic. It could also be something that they may have been, in terms of their culture, their family backgrounds, that have been not nourishing. For example, if parents never read to their children, then they're not going to score higher on it. They're not going to score very high on an intelligence test. So reading to your children, creating, having a lot of books, having a lot of things in your house that can help you develop your intelligence, that can help you. But if you do not have this, if you are coming from an impoverished environment, not just in terms of money, but in terms of intellectual stimulation, then you might have that disability based on that. It could be mild, it could be moderate, or it could be severe and profound. The severe and profound, there has to be, there's some organic component to it. They may have deficits in terms of being able to adapt to society, being able to, day-to-day living, but also being able to, maybe come up with concepts of being able to socialize with other people. So, but again, mild disability, there's a lot of people who have mild intellectual disability who are perfectly fine and can function well in their sphere. So let's talk about thinking and problem solving when it comes to your health and wellness. How you appraise cognitively the situations that you are coming across, the situations that you're in. Everybody has problems. Everybody has difficulties that they need to deal with. But your appraisal of these difficulties can affect how you cope with them. For example, if your first thought when you are having an upcoming exam, let's say, is, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster, I'm going to fail, this is terrible, you're not setting yourself up for a very good coping strategy here. If you perceive this, you may say, oh, this may be dangerous, but then you take a secondary appraisal and you say, well, maybe it's not so dangerous, maybe here's what I need to do to be able to solve. Maybe it's not that bad, and I can deal with it. That secondary appraisal allows you to kind of take a step back and think through it. And this may also be that system 1 and system 2 thing. Your system 1 may be doing your primary appraisal, that automatic, quick evaluation. This is bad. This is no good. But the secondary appraisal, stopping and thinking about it, taking the effort to think, well, maybe it's not that bad after all, leading you to make that cognitive reappraisal to be able to say, well, things aren't so bad and I can solve these problems.